Good evening. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. My name is Gretchen Marie Schaefer, and I'm the director of the Visiting Artist, Scholar, and Designer program. Thanks so much for joining us tonight and braving the roads and the weather. If you're a guest with us this evening, REMCAD is a regionally and nationally accredited college founded in 1963 and offers undergraduate and graduate degrees in a number of creative fields. We are pleased to offer tonight's lecture as part of REMCAD's Visiting Artist, Scholar, and Designer program. The VASD program, as we refer to it, explores critical, diverse, and creative inquiry. This interdisciplinary initiative enriches the academic experience at REMCAD and serves the greater Denver metro community. Our guest, Mykki Blanco, is a third lecturer in the VASD program's year-long series on identity. This series considers the ways creative thinkers are presenting, challenging, and manipulating identities in art, design, and in culture. By surveying a section of viewpoints on this subject, we are investigating various manifestations of today's protean self. In tonight's lecture, titled Sexual Politics and the Logistical Business Strategies in Independent Music, Mykki Blanco will share his story of the experiences, insights, and decisions that brought him to this particular place and moment in his burgeoning career. Mykki Blanco is a stage name of poet and performing artist Michael David Quattlebaum Jr. The persona and glamorous ghetto-fabulous riot girl rap, created under the Mykki Blanco pseudonym, was developed in part from experiments with cross-dressing in a social media art project. These experiments catalyzed his understanding of sexual empowerment, gender fluidity, and fueled the creation of his unique artistic declaration. Though expressed primarily through contemporary hip-hop, the artist creates, blends, and challenges notions of identity through various creative projects, including poetry, music, performance, and fashion. Blanco managed to carve out his own distinctive space at the intersection of these creative arenas. And he's done so in a relatively short amount of time. But despite the compressed timescale, Blanco is nevertheless a notable contributor to contemporary culture. The artist has collaborated with producers such as Bryn Mawr, Arca, and Tricky, and has also collaborated with Bjork and most recently, the Riot Girl icon Kathleen Hanna. Blanco's performances, mixtapes, and EPs have received critical acclaim from media outlets including The Guardian, The New York Times, Spin, Vogue Italia, and Pitchfork, among others. And throughout his increasing influence and success, Mykki Blanco, in his unapologetic, passionate voice, refuses to shy away from issues of race, sexuality, gender, and other presuppositions, labels, and boundaries in art and in culture. And now I'd like you all to join me in welcoming Mykki Blanco.
So we have a lot to talk about. There's a question and answer. There's even like a mid-section question and answer because a lot of the topics that I wanted to address can be weighty. They cannot also be weighty, but they can be a bit weighty sometimes. And yeah, it's really interesting because so this fall, I came out with a mixtape called Gay Dog Food, and on the mixtape, I have a track with one of my idols, which is kind of like the founder of the Riot Girl movement, the singer Kathleen Hanna, who was in Bikini Kill and then La Tigra. And Kathleen and I just did an interview together that was published by The Fader, and in the interview, Kathleen talks about this idea of being historicized while still living. Because, you know what I mean, Kathleen is only I think Kathleen is maybe 40 something, 41, 2. I don't actually know how old she is, but Kathleen is very young still. And people talk about her in this way about what she's done, you know what I mean? She is now has been canonized, canonized in the feminist right, and then also canonized, in music history. And so, it's just very interesting for her because it's no, she is not as active as she once was. She actually really hasn't been active for a couple of years in a certain sense in the way that she was when she initially started. But it's like, Kathleen's not dead, you know what I mean? And so it's like when people talk about her, in this really now like kind of like historical way, it's just kind of funny. And so this situation is really interesting for me because I just got signed to a label like this December. So everything that has happened in my career, and a lot has happened, a shit ton has happened, has been over the course of 2 years. People actually often always think that I've been around longer than I have, but I really, really actually haven't. And I think that's like that's a good thing. That's also kind of like, sometimes people are like, haven't you been around for like 6 years? And I'm like, no, my first song came out in 2012. It's not that long ago, but it's interesting for me just because like now, I'm giving lectures and I'm talking about my experiences, but I start working on my album right now, my first album. So let's get to the lecture, before I historicize myself into like a time capsule. From the silence of Duchamp to the noise of boys is the title of my first and so far only book, published on June 17th, 2011 by OWOW Gallery and Books. It is a book of narrative poetry and the piece of work that single-handedly began my career in music. Held inside the Rattlestick Playwrights Theater on Waverly Place in New York City, New York, my performance of the poetical contents of my new broadside was a mixture of the over-the-top theatrical dramaturgy I had learned in childhood acting classes, walking the thin and delicate line between in-your-face and obnoxious monologue and one-man show, all the while carrying the performance through with the amped-up energy of a rock and roll time bomb, or so I'd like to think. You see, I had to find a way for people to listen to my poetry, because the fact of the matter was that I had found my voice and chosen my unique thing in New York City in a dead vocation, whose uniqueness matched my own uniqueness, but whose message could easily be overlooked for sheer lack of an audience. Everyone at the time in New York City, I remember, of a certain social subset was a painter or aspired to be a painter. We would be the ones to have to come right after the artfully debauched successes of young New York City artists whose creative lifestyles had earned them those last self-mythologizing rights of a bygone downtown New York scene of the Bush-era 2000s. Think artists such as Dan Colin, the late Dash Snow, Terrence Coe, and Ryan McGinley, to name just a crew. So we come along and you have now every ex-football player from your senior year saying, duh, I know what the Cremaster series is. Are you kidding me, dude? And then you had, every Barry McGee-possessed skater and shy, misunderstood queer wanting to be a wild child art star. What can I say? I even had an early persona, which was a direct ripoff of Terrence Coe's own Asian punk boy, mine being called Pony Boy Black. I had used the name once in a series of photographs I had printed in Dazed and Confused and Butt magazine, a massive achievement at the time, and I tried to align myself as much as possible with the current downtown mise-en-scene. You see, I had dropped out of college twice now, with 2 full-ride scholarships. My mother fucking killed me. The School of the Art Institute of Chicago and Parsons School of Design. I knew now that I'd better really try and use what I knew I was good at, super hard, and make it in the art world, or I was looking at a potential decade of hospitality and retail work to make ends meet, and I wasn't necessarily built for either. How was I going to get people to listen to my poetry? This wasn't an obstacle, it was a challenge. And so I did what most people, I think, begin to do when they're trying to figure out the right channel and medium for their message. I looked to history. New York had the lineage that connected all my dots. The rock and roll poetry of Patti Smith, Tom Verlaine's Television, all these early beatific punks, principal players in the modern literary canon, such as the beat poet from San Francisco, Bob Kaufman, the modernist Mina Loy, John Giorno, Sylvia Plath, Pablo Neruda, and noise rock pioneers like the duo Suicide. Suicide for me, like so many art rock obsessed dilettantes in their early 20s, was the end-all be-all of cool. Two freaks spouting poetry like death metal lyrics over white noise and non-music, doing every confrontational thing you could ever think about but feel you can't do to your audience. An honest-to-God living theater of cruelty, and they were it. That's what I'll do, I thought. I'll take the poems in the book and I'll make them into these half songs, like spoken word monologues and punk songs, and I'll kind of wrap it all together in a really cool way. Yeah, that's what I'll do. And that's what I did, and that's how my punk poetry act, No Fear, was born. I said you brought your 4 eyes and all the acid to the hotel. Well, oh hell, you're a freak, jerk, pale run in the corner. I see you in the corner, man. Mouth in Lou Reed, and well, that boy, he showered like a badger bitch when that other boy took a swig of your whiskey. My lord, freak jerk. Well, let me tell you about him. I said, I looked over and someone's moving up and down, shivering with shock, standing on the dresser, whispering Ginsberg, lighting whole matchbooks, peeling the wallpaper. My lord, freak jerk. Oh, the guy, he's such a crazy guy. I don't know why I invited him, man. I said, my lord, freak jerk. But he had such a good accent, you know. I'm like, and he'll jerk you around, man. He'll jerk you around, man. He'll jerk you around, man. Yeah, man, be cool. Just be cool. I said he'll jerk you around, man. He'll jerk you around, man. My lord, freak jerk. So No Fear was kind of like that. And so this is a video of one of the first No Fear performances. Let's just watch some of this.
What's that reverb?
Now, mention I'm going to say something. Someone in this audience is going to be like, is this hip hop? And I say, no, this isn't hip hop. Little did I know.
It's there. I'm Michael David Qualabam Jr. I'd like to thank Aaron Bajra, and I'd like to thank my friend and artist, Jeffrey Julio, for supplying the music for this. I'd like to thank Daniel Fisher for supplying the music for this. DJ Physical Therapy, by the way, the 2 fucking victims right there. That's who's on my rhythms. That's who's got my back. DJ Physical Therapy. And other people got my back. I see my back right now.
Shout outs, more shout outs.
Yeah. This is No Fear. This is from the silence of these shot 2 million boys. This is some of death out. This is all of it. Let's go. Not hip hop. Let's go. Let's go. From the silence of the shock to the noise of boys. From the silence of the shock to the noise of boys. From the silence of the
So, I performed as No Fear for about 2 years, in the beginning with my friend Daniel Fisher, also known as Physical Therapy, as the drummer, and my friend artist Jeffrey Joyle as the guitarist and bassist. We were a short-lived band, with our 2 gigs in New York being more drone-heavy performance art pieces than dance concerts. And the group, after one summer, with Jeff returning to finish his sculpture degree at Bard and Daniel focusing on his own music, became Just Me, a set of pre-recorded guitar and bass licks, programmed electronic loops, and a microphone, nothing else. Scaling back turned out to be the right move. Making the lyrical portion of the performance the focus worked better, rather than just making a poetic pose. And, to be honest, trying to create a band had proved a clumsy experience for me. So with the performance now centering on me alone, entirely, it encouraged and pushed me to become a stronger performer for my audience, because the goal in the end was to communicate the poem and tell the story. Knowing that you're not going to have the drummer or the guitarist or backup singers or backup dancers, and that you yourself are the sole entertainment for those that watch you, should put a great responsibility on any artist and performer. Why? Because to be successful, you really can't suck on stage. I mean, there are people who seem to cruise through this segment of showman womanship their entire careers, and God bless them, because I don't know really how they can live with themselves, actually. But that's not for me to judge, and for everyone to know that usually, if you are going to get places in the arts and entertainment, you better be good at speaking in public and have the charisma to not only be good, i.e. talented on stage and in front of large audiences, but to have the ability to make others, the people who are watching you, also feel good and convince them that your company is now the only company that they should ever desire to keep. It is the latter part of that statement, the making people feel good while watching you part, that in my opinion is one of the basic motivations and rewards of beginning your practice as a performer and entertainer. From various art happenings around New York City to performance art showcases, socialite poetry readings and galleries written up on Vogue, to earnest artist readings and hole-in-the-wall clubs. From 2010 through 2011, I was actively performing as No Fear and making a name for myself as one of the only young poets in downtown New York. Someone who was doing something else besides painting. And hey, wait a minute, the writing was actually good. And hey, wait a minute, the kid was a pretty good act to watch as well. The native New Yorker and cultural impresario Aaron Bondaroff, one half of OWOW Gallery, was my mentor and my champion. He supported me immensely during this time, and it was the publishing of my book that first enabled me to make a name for myself. You see, a lot of people have the impression that when I began performing as Mykki Blanco, that all of the attention I received, the press and accolades, had just come out of nowhere. But really, I entered the machine first as Michael David Quattlebaum Jr. through OWOW, and this is what laid the foundation of the beginning of Mykki Blanco. Mykki began as a video project via social media, with the idea being that Mykki would speak head-on to her audience in the one-on-one diaristic way that many teenage girls have during what are called haul videos. Haul videos usually consist of predominantly female teenage women speaking directly to a camera about the various items they have purchased while going shopping, or the latest celebrity gossip, or a mixture of the two with a very real personal touch, highlighting a major event in the participant's life. I am now going to show you all the first Mykki Blanco video that was ever created, ever. And then I'm going to show you the ones that were finished following. This is insanely rare because these videos only exist because you know how Facebook is like so tyrannical. So, you know, Facebook won't let you like pull anything ever off of Facebook, especially like they will photos, but you can't like they won't still let you take a video off and like stream it. Like I would have to have someone like hack Facebook to get these off of Facebook. So anyway, these are literally like this is the first Mykki Blanco video ever. and you'll be able to see the date. But here we go. It's like, I think it's January 8th or 6th, 2011. But this is how Mykki Blanco was born before anything.
Paparazzi, paparazzi. Hey, what's up, Facebook? It's your girl. I'm sorry, I'm kind of shy because this is my first time making a Facebook video like this. I used to do this all the time on MySpace, but when you're on a new site, I guess you have to get used to the protocols, you know. I'm gonna make this one short because me and the girls are gonna go out later. I finally fucking got off being grounded today, which was a really big deal because you guys have no idea. I didn't have no computer. They took away my cell phone, and it was over some dumb shit too. So basically, this is my recap. When I was grounded, these are the things that I learned. I learned that I definitely don't want to fight anymore because it's not even worth it. And the bitch who I fought, I'm going to still kick her ass outside of school. So that's one thing I learned. Second thing I learned when I was grounded was I want to stop smoking weed because that's all I did when I was grounded. If you have been grounded before, you know you don't have like shit to do but smoke weed. So I'm going to cut that out. Today was my first day back in school. I want to give a shout out to Tasha and Gabby who made that shit legit. I was really hyped up all day because varsity basketball tryouts were this afternoon, and I'm already doing dance team because like I really wanted this year to get my extracurriculars up. Like I really wanted to get my extracurriculars up. So I thought I might try it out. I played in 8th grade, but we're going to see how I did. But I think I whipped a couple bitches' asses, though. I mean, for real. Like, I think I really had it. I had that, at least. Hold on one second. Have y'all ever had these? They're really fucking good. Oh! Speaking. I got a new lipstick today. I don't speak French, but it's called Sea Fleur, and I googled that, and that means like sea flower, which is kind of cute because when I looked at it, it kind of gives you like a little mermaid vibe, a little bit, I guess, a little bit. But no. I mean, I just want to say like, welcome to Facebook. Well, this is like my welcoming to Facebook. It's 2011. It's time for like new shit all the time. Before I close out with this first video, she's dressed in too much like fucking Katy Perry. Okay, like I love Katy Perry, but it's like, Rihanna, you don't need to do red hair like down to here because you know, I mean, you look at it. Katy Perry did blue hair. Rihanna thinks she can do red hair. I love her, but I'm not seeing that. I'm really not seeing it, and I haven't really talked about it a lot because, like, I feel like everybody's been loving it, and I've been afraid, but it's just not. It's not cute. So I'm excited tomorrow. My cousin's taking me shopping in Soho. Steve Madden here. I come, bitch, and I'm excited because my cousin's bringing his friend Jeanette. I love her. So shout out to Jeanette. We're going to have so much fucking fun tomorrow. And then last but not least, Facebook. Always kiss my boo before I finish a video because that's how he knows I love him. Alright, bye guys.
So that one's a bit longer, but this I'll show you another one. They're all much shorter. These are the very original Mykki Blanco videos. Here's another one.
Okay, so there's this group of guys who is basically like sitting over there, like you can't even see, but they are really, really cute, and I'm fucking cheating my ass off. Like,
I'm up here like at like the sub place, and like I definitely like should not even be there, but I don't, I'm not the kind of girl that like really cares if people, you know what I mean, like if people see me eat a lot. Cause I've actually found that the niggas that like when you eat hearty, they know that means like a cute booty. I'm stuttering over my words because it's like I don't know. I shouldn't be getting this sub because that boy is so cute. And you can't even see. Y'all can't. I don't even want to put the camera over there, but he's fine.
Okay, so these are, one. It's like 44 seconds. One more.
Y'all have no idea. This is like my #1 spot. Oh my god, bitch! Wait, should I give me a glass?
Okay.
Cute! Is this cute?
Yeah.
Y'all afraid of a lawsuit? What? Look at him, he's cute though.
Oh.
Nah, he's cute though.
I think you need these.
Okay. All right. Mykki Blanco began simply as a new idea I had as an artist. During the very publicized feud between female rappers Nicki Minaj and Lil' Kim, Mykki Blanco sprung Venus-like as an idea for Miki to be a third contender in the fight. Except, what was important to Miki wasn't the domination of hip-hop or any titles, but the free expression of a rebellious riot girl-influenced wild child. The name Miki derived from my own name, Michael, but also was spelled in the same way as a hint at Nicki Minaj, and also was a nod and homage to Lil' Kim's mixtape alter ego, Mykki Blanco. But the name origin was where the buck stopped, because I wanted Miki to be because I did not want Miki to be seen as a drag version of either woman, or actually any woman at all, but rather a feminized extension of my own personality and character. I had never dressed in drag before, really. A few times in like the freak scene in Chicago, but it was more messy and punk and not glam at all. The reactions from my peers, contemporaries, and in my general friend circle varied as Miki was born and blossoming. Up until this point, I had always been openly out of the closet about my homosexuality, but I was seen somewhat as a boy's boy, a tough guy. I ran with a circle of very, very rowdy boys in New York City, and a few of them and others were quite taken aback by this new character. Where was Michael, the tough guy? It made some people uncomfortable. Actually, many people. But to others, it now had given me this fascinating dimension, and aside to my character, they and myself had never knew I had. I nurtured the experience. Something was happening in me that I could not understand. I enjoyed dressing in women's clothing, and beyond dressing up, I was being told by people that I actually looked pretty. You see, it's one thing to go through life as a young man and be told you are handsome or good looking. But to a certain extent, I think that all masculine compliments are rooted in modesty. It is quite another thing to experience being called pretty or even beautiful for the first time, and it feels different, and it changes how one perceives oneself. I began to cross-dress more and more, and then it became a daily thing. It was almost as if Pandora's box had opened. I was experiencing a variety of new things. Men on the street and subways would catcall me. They would even go as far as to come up to me in broad daylight and ask for my number. I had posted an ad on the site Craigslist in the transgender seeking men category, not really knowing where else to meet men that might like someone like me. And the responses I received filled up my email inbox. The responses varied from vulgar to genuinely loving to shocking. And the men, well, these weren't creepy old men hiding in the shadows looking to feed on my blood. These were a cornucopia of men that I would have never, ever imagined would find me attractive And here was the strange thing. None of them were, quotation marks, gay. From blue blood Wall Street guys to Eastern street merchants to self-identifying thugs to policemen. Yes, I once went on a date with a cop. All of these men were the men that had zero interest in me as a gay man, but were very interested in spending time with me as a man dressed as a woman. The paradox blew my mind. I had never known this aspect of life. I began seeking out transgender clubs, parties, bar nights, and I went, but I soon discovered that I wasn't always welcomed from the main crowd. You see, I wasn't transgender. I was a boy in drag, and in that community, there is a big difference between identifying as trans and actually inhabiting a transgender body. The societal implications of the two are the same in some respects and extremely different in how these two worlds interact. For the most part, in my experience, drag queens, cross-dressers, and the transgender world usually do not occupy the same social settings. Not to say, of course, that these worlds do not collide. They do, but you have to live the life maybe to know exactly what I mean, and I'll touch on this later. At this point, I was living as a cross-dressed, trans-identifying one man every day of my life, whether I was recording a Mykki Blanco-related video piece or not. And so at this time is when I began to elevate the Mykki Blanco project, and when people openly began to just, refer to me as Miki. To them, the birth of the project had also spurred this birth of me cross-dressing. And it was a crossover, but really it was not like a performance thing. It's like the videos were something separate, and then they inspired like this whole entire other thing that I started doing in my sexuality. At this point is where I began to elevate the Mykki Blanco project. Up until a certain point, Mykki Blanco had just existed as this net persona through these comedic online videos and photo shoots. But a friend had said to me, Mykki is supposed to have aspirations of being a rapper. She should rap. So I, at the age of 25, began to write raps as Mykki, and I began putting them online, and the interest in the project soared. So just really quickly, we're going to albums, timeline profile, timeline photos. So this is like one of like a first like Mykki photo shoot. Like we're just gonna look, oops. It's like early. That's like the designer Shane Oliver of Hood by Air. That's like Daniel, oops. Let's see, hold on. How do you get out of here? Mykki, it's an older one. Oops, okay. But, wait, hold on, I'm trying to find, wait. Escape, how do I escape? All right, okay. So we're gonna move on. Okay. Let me go, because I want to play the very first Mykki Blanco rap. Okay, so this was so it started as, the haul video style. Then this was the next step. This is the very, very first. We have that volume working. This is the very first Mykki Blanco rap. This is what kind of changed everything.
Killing all you haters, call me Dren, cause my blood is spliced. Many men and bitches wish death upon Blanco, but I got my bows and arrows straight shot Squanto. If being fine was a crime, I'd be on death row. Rooted with the bosses, cooking John Gotti pesto. Whisper sweet nothings in my ear, suck my left toe. Pussy so tight, nigga lifted and it's stuck closed. Black Sailor Moon, Doom Generation. Dark Joan of Arc, now gimme my veneration. I'ma keep this one short and sweet like my outfits. In the mirror gloss, the lips adjusting how this crown fits. It might sound arrogant, it might sound bold, but everything I touch turns to motherfucking gold. I know Mykki be the bane of y'all's existence. But listen, the queen bitch about to go the distance. Mykki Blanco is the fifth element. Since I came to earth, the mother bitches ain't relevant. Mykki Blanco is the fifth element. Since I came to earth, the mother bitches ain't relevant. Mykki Blanco is the fifth element. Since I came to earth, the mother bitches ain't relevant. Mykki Blanco is the fifth element. Since I came to earth, the mother bitches ain't relevant. Mykki Blanco, Mykki Blanco, Mykki Blanco, Mykki Blanco. I'm just playing with y'all. Nah, I'm just playing with y'all.
So that was the very first Mykki Blanco rap, the very first one ever. And then what followed would be this one.
I am a warrior princess, accepting the hybridity of my being. I am an oracle of the goddess, pretty much predicting bullshit unseen. I am stranded in Mendocino, California, with no money and no ecstasy to sell. Basically, fuck my life. I know, I already tried summoning the spirit world with my pocket Ouija and only got an answer from Roy Orbison. As if I'm even going to cry over you right now. What is that in the distance? I hate walking on the freeway. Imagine a poppy field. Be calm. Lane outstretched, each pupil magnetically pulling each twinkling airplane closer to my self-destruction. Pissing away the hours, I am a disciple of the drift. A hitchhiking priestess attracting serial killers on the lam. It really is a long way to Hollywood. And excuse me that my Mercury is in Pisces, so I might sound a bit dreamy. Solid things can be nomadic, but never movements. I am an apocalyptic angel of death, with plans to blow up New York City and Beverly Hills. I bet you've never seen a terrorist with such killer lip gloss or such killer legs. Fuck me! This heat is making my new stick and poke itch like shit. I squint into the sun. Oh God, I realize my memories of Neptune are real. What the fuck am I doing on Earth? Whoa! Fuck you fucking asshole! This bug-eyed ranchero almost runs me over. Ugh, you're tweaking meth head. Mind you, I have on leather shorts and smell like ball sweat. In recovery, I close my eyes and cast a spell to the wind, quietly chanting, quietly wanting, quietly wishing. Please, take me home with you tonight. I said, please, take me home with you tonight. Please, take me home alone with you tonight. I said, please, take me home alone with you tonight.
So that was kind of like the next stage. And then just really, really quickly, what one is like actually really kind of a thing? I guess I'll start this one. This is I'm just gonna start this one. We don't have to go through it, but
I got a valley of dolls eating my pussy, it's crazy. I got a pack of the hall so I can suck down them babies. I give them hickey so icky. The doctor think he got rabies. I am not a female. I am an animal. Nigga, cut up that Adderall. Break Miki off that Xanax bar. The blue Gatorade chase that pill so quickly. Said the blue Gatorade chase that pill so quickly. Freaking on the dance floor, the club gone silly. Blue Gatorade chase that pill so quickly. Get your X-ray specs ready because this shit is scary. Who would have thought that Mykki Blanco fucks with Katy Perry? Bondage up yours, whips and chains, Hail Mary. Mrs. Blanco now trending, blowing up your blackberries. Tongue between the cherries, laid back drinking sherry. Barely 18, Mykki Blanco teenage dream. Homecoming queen, stroking Woody's Toy Story. Denying me the black card, oh now it's statutory. Bow down before the glory. Good morning, fellow angels. Mykki Blanco is the rookie. Diamond in the rough, sweeter than a Miss Fields cookie. Rolling with my homie Katie, nothing can stop us, baby. What you are hearing now is a teenage dream gone crazy, Katie.
You think I'm pretty without any makeup on. You think I'm funny when I got the punchline wrong. I know you get me, so I let my walls come down.
So, people were telling me, whoa, you can really rap. You should keep writing. You should perform this stuff. So that's what I did. I began combining the Mykki Blanco raps with the punk poetry project. And at first it was a bit awkward, but finally I found my footing, and it created a creative melting pot I never knew I had. It created, to be honest, something original. People didn't know what to expect from me when I got on stage. Was this going to be just another traditional lip-syncing drag performer? Even the drag I was doing wasn't traditional. You know, I was dressed more akin to a female grunge singer in baby doll dresses and ripped tights. So when I began rapping, well, that was another surprise. Then just when one, if possible, had gotten to the used to the idea of me rapping, I then tore away from that and would begin screaming at the top of my lungs, throwing myself, almost sacrificing myself to the audience. And it was a combination of the elements that fascinated people. A rapping, cross-dressing punk drag queen. I began to perform in New York City quite frequently, building my reputation as a performer and an act to see. And like most things that come in an interesting and pretty package, the first community to embrace me as a performer was the Fashion Pack. And Gretchen and I were actually talking in the car about this. It's kind of interesting because a lot of people, if you actually kind of look at fashion from a political perspective, which I know can sometimes be very hard to do, but in fashion theory, what you're going to find is that throughout history, a lot of really taboo ideas and concepts and kind of lifestyles are generally first absorbed through fashion because most serious people and most serious things view fashion as very frivolous. So it's very easy for something very subversive and taboo to become accepted and then kind of like trickle into the collective consciousness via fashion. So don't think fashion is as stupid and as frivolous as you might think. It sometimes is. I began to be swallowed up by the Fashion Pack in New York City. I began to be dressed by designers for events, invited to fancy parties. Fashion and lifestyle photographers were clamoring to shoot me. I was hosting events with Chloe Sevigny and having private photo sessions with the provocative and controversial fashion photographer Terry Richardson. I worked with Michael Jackson's former stylist, Rushka Bergman, and wore a $22,000 ball gown in my first major video shoot. I did makeup videos. Mykki Blanco's second incarnation was no more an underground video project, but that of an it girl. A social position usually held only by rich white women making their debut in socialite society. The kind of glamour most gay men fantasize about, and which most black gay men certainly do not get to occupy. You see, this wasn't comedic drag. I was wearing Jean Paul Gaultier, not sequins. I wasn't the new RuPaul. I was the new Edie Sedgwick. So here we're gonna look at kind of like my debut into society. And And this is a video that Italian Vogue asked me to do. And so this is like, gotta go to the video. So this is like my debut into society. You could call it. I mean, it's not really, but I mean, it is, but you know. Hi, I'm Michael David Quattlebaum Jr., Mykki Blanco, and I'm an artist, poet, and performer living here in New York City. What I do in New York City? Survive. No, I'm a performer. I come from a pretty interdisciplinary background, installation, visual, text-based stuff. But when I moved to New York, I had a lot bottled up inside as far as that kind of like excess creative energy. How did everything start? Where am I from? My mom's name is Deborah, my dad's name is Michael. Two really great people. My mom raised me. It's like my mom really is this like cultural matriarch. Like, you know, it's like, you know, everyone goes through struggles, but it's like that has nothing to do with an enlightened mind and, you know, and an open soul, you know, and having insight and learning about the world. I was an it girl. And then that bridged a crossover of projects like this, where I was doing stuff like this stuff.
The Jane Hotel. Hey, don't ask me if I'm high. I don't ask you if you've taken a shit today, do I? He pushed the invisible boulders rolling off of Sisyphus' back. Landing assembled on a glass roof, waiting naturally for a collapse or a breakthrough, whichever way one wants to spin it. Very bright social light bulbs, fizzling retina, blinking in a ceiling made of matter denser than water. A flood of energy electrocuted, electroshocked but unimpressed. It's a heavy smile, yes, as authentic as sadness yet pure, a periodic element unnamed. Words now spill out the mouth, like the soggy lettered noodles floating in an alphabet soup of acceptance, indifference, and something deeply hidden behind the heart, underneath the stomach. A body made of blue roses with syringed thorns, dancing on a sheet of foil. A deluge of champagne or piss flutes up, a cover-up. Sitting in the Jane Hotel, ghost boys playing in the cemeteries of decadence. I return alone from the third-floor bathroom, door locked, down 3 malt liquor beers, hidden behind the toilet, back room, backstairs from the balcony, that only a certain kind of Juliet leans over, longing only for one kind of Romeo, a white knight on a white horse with white eyes. Amber on rosewood, gold and sandalwood, plush crimson in the spinning ballroom, feeling out blindly the clumsy joke of intimacy that men exchange with each other. Yeah, man. Okay, man. A laugh, man. Alright, man. I care, man. A lineage of melancholy. A spectator sport where the blood runs faster than fox races, sniffing us out of our holes. Young wills weaker than tequila. Salted vibrancies sifting, falling to the bottom of the glass. Or really, just to the very bottom of things.
So, at this time, I was living in Harlem with 2 of my best friends, the sculptor Jeff that I had talked about previously, who'd been a part of No Fear, and his childhood friend Gabriel, who was an electronic musician and producer who goes by the artist named Gabi. I had been writing the Mykki Blanco raps, making the videos, combining the raps with the punk poetry, and now performing almost every weekend in New York City. But I needed a direction for Mykki because I was doing these various activities, but they didn't really have a place. I'm a very goal-oriented person and a very driven person. And I realized that I didn't actually have a goal for Mykki. I was just being creative, which is a good thing, but it was time for me to choose a direction. So with the encouragement of some of my friends and a few suggestions from other musicians and performers, I was instructed that the next best thing I could do with Mykki would be to come out with a release of some kind, a collection of Mykki Blanco songs, a mixtape. This was the first time that I had thought of to do anything related to music in a more professionalized way. And what helped was the fact that I was living with a music producer, Gabi. I really had no idea what I was doing, but the formula seemed simple enough. Write raps, rap over a beat, create a hook and a chorus, and boom, you have a song. Gabi and I were both barely employed at the time, so we had a lot of room to work and experiment. And out of my sessions with Gabi came what would be the very first Mykki Blanco song, which was not a video art freestyle and was called Betty Rebel. I released Betty Rebel online, and it became an immediate success. It was the growth from freestyle to a full-fledged Mykki Blanco song, and now the interest in my musicality was more heightened than it had ever been before, and I was beginning to create a bridge between being seen as a poet, performance artist, it-girl drag queen, and now musician. Other producers approached me about working together after Betty Rebel had been released. Nothing serious, just friends of friends, still just a close-knit New York community forming of like-minded artists. But still, it was a growth. The next producer I was to work with is someone who now most people would know because of his own genius, and also for producing Bjork's latest album, working for Kanye West, and producing FKA Twigs' LP. His name is Arca. Arca produced what would become my first single, and actually bring about my first taste of fame on a larger scale, and that is a song called Join My Militia. We're not gonna watch the whole video, but we'll watch a little bit of it.
Mykki Digital, sound wave oasis. Niggas got the itis, hit 'em with a bass lick. Make it so good a nigga wanna try and taste it. Straight jacket the beat, though it gets away your laces. Just right here, Joe's Blanco voodoo. It's black magic music, nigga Blanco voodoo. They kept me in this holding cell for close to 8 days. They can keep me here forever, cause my story won't change. His name, Hassan Abdul, weight 170, height 6'2", size 12 shoe, black hair, brown eyes, the warmest smile in the world, but so cold-blooded inside. Who am I to judge him? I hate him, but I love him. Inshallah, he whispered, Masalama, I went, but damn. I didn't know my man was in the Taliban, the Taliban. I didn't know my man was in the Taliban.
So let me see if I can skip to one of the more defining parts of the video.
Blanco is the truth, and you bitches know what I said. Blanco is the truth, and you niggas know what I said. Blanco is the truth, Blanco is the truth. I said Blanco is the truth, Blanco is the truth, Blanco is the truth, and you niggas hate it. I said Blanco is the truth, and you bitches hate it. I said Blanco is the truth, Blanco is the truth. I said Blanco is the truth, Blanco is the truth. Nas gave me a perm. He said you got the hidden gift, kid. Lead them, they'll learn. Nas gave me a perm. He said you got the hidden gift, kid. Lead them, they'll learn. Y'all should be glad I pushed my mixtape back. Get yourself a little shine before Miki brings out the ass. You should be glad I pushed my mixtape back. You should be glad I pushed my mixtape back. Back, 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 back. Cosmication, innovation. Don't be a stranger, niggas. Don't be a stranger. Peace out.
Fiona Apple would later go on to copy that. Anyway, just as you noted, anyway, not like blatantly copied that. Anyway, but which was funny because, which was so crazy because I was like this video, the aesthetic, like I directly was inspired by Fiona Apple So it's just like really, it was like everything had come full circle. Anyway, Join My Militia was released online just as Betty Rebel had been previously, but it became a much more popular song, and it is how I began working with my manager, Charles Damga. Charles approached me one night after one of my performances in New York, post Join My Militia being out, and he wanted to know if we could have a meeting. Charles worked for Warp Records, but also had his own young label, Uno NYC, and wanted to know what I was thinking and where perhaps I wanted to go with Mykki Blanco. So I met with Charles and explained to him that this was my first time making songs, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but that I had been getting all this press for my performances, and that I knew that I wanted to keep performing, and that the next logical steps would be for me to continue to create songs, but that I didn't really have a plan. He then asked me if I thought I would like to create a release, if I wanted to work towards creating more songs to put together as a record, and that if I did, he could and would like to help me. You see, Charles knew right away that I had the ambition, but like I said, I didn't know what I was doing because I wasn't necessarily a musician, and I hadn't really come into my 20s or in this world being a musician. And so he offered to manage me. I, at this point, didn't even know what a manager did, but as soon as I began working with Charles, my direction for Mykki Blanco became very clear. We had meetings, and we created a framework. Betty Rebel had been popular. Join My Militia was becoming very, very popular. So we had the idea that we create a music video for Join My Militia, while my personal goal was to write songs and then decide which producers I'd like to reach out to, working together to create the first Mykki Blanco release, Cosmic Angel. As a manager, Charles would now be my liaison when people approached me about doing performances, and he would also seek out performance opportunities for me. But the biggest thing that Charles did was that he helped me organize myself as an artist, and he invested in me at a critical stage that would lead to what would be considered my big break, which would be the release of the single Wavy, produced by Bryn Mawr, and Hayes Boogie Life, produced by Sinden and Matrix Man, and the retrospective music videos, and my first tour with Death Grips that would follow. Okay, so right now I want to make the lecture a bit more interactive, as I've been talking at you a bunch, and I have some discussion points that I'd like to open up to questioning and tie into the chronology of the lecture, and I'd rather us engage each other in this portion than continue, for me to talk at you for like 6 more paragraphs. I'm going to go over some of these points, and we're going to choose kind of where we want to go with them, but I'm going to reiterate each one as we go. So what I'm going to talk about, or what we can choose to talk about, is cross-dressing versus drag, trans-identifying versus inhabiting a transgender body, discrimination based on sexuality in hip-hop or in general, and gay militancy, the role Riot Grrrl has played in my artistry, gay rap, the term gay rapper, homophobia in music writing, the use of sexuality in marketing, the pink dollar, and more specifically geared towards me, what my music videos have helped shape in my career. So let's start with cross-dressing versus drag. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask about cross-dressing versus drag? Well, he said, what's the difference? Drag is a form, this is literally still just all my opinions, just my opinions. In my opinion, drag is a lineage of performance that plays upon kind of stereotypical tropes of womanhood. But then at the same time, drag also is a liberation for a lot of gay men who feel as if they cannot express their more feminine sides and be accepted in society. So drag is this release and this escape, and it's also, a form of performance that has existed in history since Shakespeare stole from Marlowe. So drag can be many things to many different people, but as it relates to me, I did not come from the drag community, and so I've had this thing where there's been kind of friction between myself and the drag community, and then there's been friction and there hasn't been friction, because I really had to explain to people a lot when I first started out that I began as a cross-dresser, and that as a cross-dresser, cross-dressing can kind of go two ways. A lot of people actually do not like the term cross-dresser because it's very un-PC, because they view, or it can be viewed, cross-dressing as just an erotic expression, an extension of sexuality. That, a cross-dresser would be like this huge linebacker, who just likes to wear wigs and makeup and lingerie, and that is also a true kind of cross-dresser. That is a kind of true cross-dressing thing. But like I said, it's I think that this day and age, especially with kind of the strides that have been made in the transgender community, I think that people used to be able to label themselves or be queer under this very giant umbrella and kind of identify as trans, and that was kind of seen as the same thing. And I think that more and more as transgender people garner a larger visibility in this country, I think we're learning, and I think it can still be debated, and I can definitely be wrong, but I think that it is not the same anymore to identify as transgender and identify and inhabit a transgender body. Just the societal implications are not the same. And how you may feel in your feelings is one thing, and I feel, are emotionally and spiritually entitled to feel and identify with however you want. But our feelings don't dictate society. Society dictates society. And so someone who inhabits a transgender body walks through life in a very different way than someone who identifies as trans, in my opinion.
Hey, thanks for coming to REMCAD too. We really appreciate you being here tonight. I wanted to know about discrimination within the family structure. Like when you started to really break out into this persona of Mykki Blanco, you had mentioned your mom kind of flipped out when you bailed on your scholarship, but did she have any opinions, or was there any rejection amongst your loved ones?
So, this is very interesting because there was this initial feeling that I was wasting. There was this initial feeling of them not understanding, and I knew they weren't going to understand because they were very okay with me being gay, but they were at first, and they didn't even realize it, transphobic, you know what I mean? And they didn't even realize they were being transphobic, but they definitely were. And I think that it had to do with this feeling that I had all this potential. I was a good writer, I was this, I was that, in their eyes. And that I was kind of taking this back road now of just being, in their minds, a bar room, like a lounge, a bar room drag queen, And when I say that on this stage, I don't want to offend anyone because I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I think that literally that is a beautiful expression of life and culture, and that needs to be, a thing. But I'm talking about my parents who, wanted me to be the next, Langston Hughes or something. So, yes, I remember telling my mom about one of my first drag performances. Actually, I was recruited by the artist and director Cody Critchlow of Shun to be in his performance at the MoMA PS1. And I acted and I performed in drag, and I was telling my mom on the phone, and then she said, are you dressed in drag for this performance? And, I said, yes, I am. I have on these heels. I can't walk in them. And she said, oh, Michael, I don't like that. And then I got very defensive. My mother and I are very close. And I got very defensive. And I said, well, I don't care if you don't like it. And, if you don't like it, then we don't have to talk about it. But I'm not going to sit up and have a conversation with you about what you don't like, because that's not what we're going to do. And so I think when she realized that my attitude became so jarring, I think because we're so close, I think that she immediately switched gears. And then this thing happened where, so Mykki Blanco took off, and then they both started, and then my dad, I love my dad actually a lot, and we are very close, but he has some real asshole aspects to his personality. And he, I think he unfriended me on Facebook because it had just become kind of like too much, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, I also, to my credit, I was like literally taking photos and like skirts like up to here, and like, it was just, I mean, you know, I had like no filter, but like literally, like I said, like I love my dad a lot, but he can be a fucking asshole. So he unfriended me, and then I was just like, well, okay. So he unfriended me, so I like really gave him the cold shoulder when he tried to talk to me again. I don't think I talked to my dad for like 9 months after that. I was like, fuck you. So once I kind of like both gave them the cold shoulder, then they were both just like, oh, okay, we can't act this way. And then an article came out really early. It was like in Details magazine, and it was actually kind of like hip hop's like new queer stars or something. I don't know. It's one of those things. And then they both were just like, wait a minute. And they started reading more online about Mykki Blanco, and they started reading more about kind of like all this stuff. And then they were like, oh my God. And then they realized that it was more than they thought, and they realized, and then it actually became this annoying thing where they had too many opinions. And my mom would she would read everything I said in an interview, and then think that she could call me at like any time of day to talk to me about something I said in an interview that she thought I shouldn't have said. And I was just like, oh my God, like you cannot make my life this manic. So it became the opposite. But yeah, and so now it's this thing where like now like my whole entire family, because also I've always been someone to where I'm a family-oriented person, but only with the family that I like. So it's like, if I wasn't ever close to you growing up, I don't like, how I am, I don't like owe you anything. So I was very kind of like I didn't really care if my family knew. They knew some stuff, but now they all know, and they all like, you know, they all follow me on Facebook, we're friends, and they're just like, oh my God, you know, because it's like, I think for them, it's like, it's really grown beyond, it's not just Michael dressing, you know, as a woman. It's like, oh my, look where he's traveling to, and oh, he's doing this, you know what I mean? And so that's how it's been with my family. It's been really, 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 really interesting. But I mean, because literally now my mom is just like, oh, you know, I want you to have the blonde hair again, and like, just like, you know, it's really like become like that whole thing. Okay.
I'm wondering if you feel like this project would be as successful if you had just done it as yourself without dressing in women's clothing, or if it is like at this maybe certain point in history where, yeah, the transgendered community is getting more exposure, where it's the sort of a shock value of that. And I mean, I love it, but I'm sure that there's been a lot of internet trolling or whatever's happening. I know that if I put up something like this, that would at least a certain percentage of negative feelings around it. So I'm wondering sort of what you feel like its position in the culture is, and why it's gotten the good reviews, and then what the bad reviews have been, and how that's affected your progress.
Okay. Well, what happened in the beginning that was bad was that I had gotten really swallowed up in the fashion community. And so that made music writers, who for the most part are generally male and white and straight, that made them really weary of taking me seriously, because it was just like, oh, you know, he's just like, you know, a little dressed up doll. And actually, when we did Join My Militia, the reason why I wanted to be so gross and a mutant and a complete, and that's actually, and when I realized that, and it wasn't to appease anyone, but it you know, I had come from like, you know, a more punk lineage, and as much as I was enjoying kind of like this glamour it girl thing, because I think that is honestly, to be born in, you know, a single parent household as an African American boy, and then wear a $22,000 dress in your music video, that's something. And so it's like, I was enjoying, you know, the glamour of it, but I needed to reject that. And so that's when I started the whole mutant angel thing. And so for a while, it was kind of just like, people would write about me in a really frivolous way. And then slowly but surely, it was kind of just like, oh, well, like, you know, he's a really good rapper for a gay guy, you know what I mean? And so this is around the time, I think, well, a couple months later, actually, because I was doing this stuff. Leaf had come out with his song "What" that was like really popular, And then later I came out with Wavy, which became really popular. But Frank Ocean had come out, I think, a couple of months after, like both of us had come out with our songs. And then people were just like, oh my God, like, oh, what is gay people in music, you know? And what's funny is that, and I hate to say this, but people like have a tendency to forget everything, and then to not only forget everything, but then to like forget like really key things, like Dennis Rodman in a wedding dress, or that Freddie Mercury ever existed, or that David Bowie ever existed, or that, you know, the disco star Sylvester existed, or that, I don't know, someone named Prince existed. And so people can just, you know, and myself included, we can forget and then become so shocked by something, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I used to say this in interviews, how is what I'm doing anything different than Marilyn Manson with hair to his butt and, you know, in a lace corset with red lipstick? How is anything I'm doing any more different than Prince with ass cheeks out and pearls and diamonds and fucking like, you know, waves down his back? And how is what I'm doing any different than Mark Bolan or David Bowie or the whole glitter rock phenomenon or Motley Crue with lipstick on, or, you know what I mean? And it's just like, don't like make me blow my brain up full of examples of people who have done what I've done before I did it. So it's just like, if you were shocked by me, I kind of just felt like you were an idiot. But to go back to really focus on what you were saying, it's like the trolling and the negative comments, there was a period when I felt like my back was up against the wall, because like all the positive attention that had happened, there was a wave of negative attention. And the negative attention wasn't from anyone whose critical opinion I cared about, but it was just like trolls saying the craziest stuff, you know what I mean? One of my videos ended up getting put on World Star Hip Hop, and it was just like, you know, people were just like, I mean, it was as if the bowels of hatred, you know, were unleashed, and you really get to see and I feel like, I think that's really good when that happens, because you get to see just how freaking dark some people will be. And when you see that darkness, and when you see just how like maniacal a certain segment of society is, you think, okay, I have to do this. And you know why I have to do this? I have to do this for people who are like me. Because I remember being 15 and only having Will and Grace, and only having like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, these representations of gayness I did not, you know, understand or relate to at all. And then I would listen to La Tigra, and I would see J.D. Sampson, and I would listen to Kathleen Hanna, and you know what I mean? And I actually would have a cutout of a picture of Dennis Rodman in makeup, you know, in my sketch, in my little notebook. And I would think about, okay, I have to be, for people who are younger than me, what those people were for me then, you know what I mean? And then you feel a certain responsibility. And it goes beyond your artistry. And to be honest, I have calmed down as culture has calmed down, but in 2012, there are websites now that will gladly post my shit who wouldn't even dare do it. Our followers, our viewership won't understand it, or you know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, so then Frank Ocean says he's gay, and now the whole world is like cool with everyone being gay, you know what I mean? And it just, you know, it's a really silly thing.